It was a marathon so far and halfway.
I'll try to be quick about my part if I can.
It looks like we have
Okay.
a quorum.
Yeah, we have a quorum. Yeah. So I'm going to propose that we move the business manager update, item number 7, into the executive director's report under staffing updates. Can I get a second on that?
I second.
Thank you, McKenna. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion passes. So that'll bring us to item number 8, which is our growth schools presentation
Great.
with Ryan Eldridge.
So I will just jump in real quick, but I had the privilege of having this presentation in November, and I know I did a quick top line presentation to the board at the next meeting. And unfortunately, I don't think I could possibly do it justice. And so I wanted to give Ryan the chance to speak to each thing and actually answer the questions that you guys had brought up. And so I'll pass it on to Ryan.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. My name's Ryan Eldridge. I'm Associate Vice President of New Business for Grow Schools. I've been with the company for 10 years now. It's my 10-year anniversary this month, and I'm a father of three. I'm local here in Portland. We're based out of Portland, but we're actually a national company that focuses just on charter schools, 100% on charter schools. And I kind of came through this, backstory is just I originally graduated from college with the intent to come out and teach and coach. And then, I found myself coming out of college, jumping into a job to kind of start paying back some student loans. And unfortunately, I never went back to the education sector that way. And so I had years of business development under my belt in different industries and, software, telemedicine, healthcare, and it came about where about 10 years ago, my daughter, who was transferring from elementary school into middle school, she socially wasn't a big social butterfly. She was always kind of challenged, and we were concerned as parents about sending her to the big box school up the street. It was a really overcrowded school, West Sylvan, and didn't think she was really going to thrive in that atmosphere. So we started searching around for schools, and all of a sudden we found out about charter schools and school choice in Oregon, and didn't even realize that they were out there. Weren't really in a position to send her to private school at the time. And so as we investigated that and I learned a lot more about it, it just happened to coincide where I was looking for a change of career. I had a friend that worked at Charter School Capital who said they were looking to hire, sat down with the owner of the company, and was just overall impressed with the mission, the vision, what they're doing for schools out there. And fortunately, they hired me, and 10 years later, I'm still here loving what I'm doing. And the reason being is because I can't teach the kids. I'm not a teacher, I'm not in the education sector, but what I can do is help charter leaders kind of get where they're trying to go. And indirectly, I get that social impact at the end of the day that these schools that you're providing this unique learning experience is going to benefit the kids at the end of the day. And I'm a volunteer dad coach, basketball, football, baseball. So I've got the coaching and the education back in full circle. So that's my backstory, and I'm sticking to it. I had the privilege of speaking with McKenna, and we were discussing kind of the challenges the school was facing, and one of the ways that we help schools. Should I go ahead and share my screen? Is that best? I could actually just kind of pull up the presentation. I'll try to run through it real quick. It looks like I have
Yeah.
okay. So I'll just kind of cruise through this real quickly, high level. Um, the idea behind this is that, our grow schools, um, is realized over the last, in particular 5 to 10 years, that it's becoming a much more challenging environment out there, that there's a lot of school choice out there. There's fewer kids, both generationally, people moving out of the cities, for one reason or another, cost of living adjustments. And the marketing efforts have just become more competitive. And with that, the days of handing out flyers at a local event don't necessarily create a waiting list, and you really have to compete for those parents and those students in your areas. But in particular, is really getting, a succinct message across that really points out what makes you unique and why would we send as a parent, my kid to your school? What differentiates you? And so with that, there's limited resources. Every charter leader, I think McKenna and the rest of the staff, but people on here, understand that these charter leaders are wearing 10 different hats in a given day, and sometimes don't always have the resources to get to all, the full good intentions they have on marketing and kind of blanketing in an area. And so with that, what we're trying to do is really help you get where you're going. The vision of the company is really that all kids have access to a nurturing school environment where they can flourish. And the mission is really to help others get where they're trying to go. And for school leaders, that means getting you the money, the resources, and the know-how to create thriving schools. And we do that in three main ways, which is money to run the school, money to buy the school, and kids to fill your school. And so with that, we're a pretty big facilities company. We have quite a bit of experience in acquiring properties, building them out for schools in a sale leaseback model, and then transferring the ownership back to them with a path to ownership, cash flow assistance in times of need, either through growth periods or incentives or programmatic enhancements that they have. And the kids to fill the school really came through our experience because we're a national company, and we've actually helped about 900 charter schools now across the country over a 16-year period of time, serving about 2 million students in that. And we realized we were pretty good at marketing simply because we're at all the state associations, conferences, across the country, the national conferences. We started helping some of our clients with the ability to fill the students or fill the seats. We bought buildings, they have a lease agreement, and then making sure those seats were full. And then we realized we were pretty good at it, so we started to open it up to the general public. They don't have to be a client on the building side or the money to run side. They can actually just, provide the service open-ended. But the goal of it is really to make sure that kids show up and attend the first day of school. Past that, we actually, and we'll talk more about why we actually carry that much further on from a billing cycle, to prove that not only the kids showed up, but they actually stayed and you're getting paid on them. But we're trying to partner to create these thriving classrooms, and obviously it's more impactful, especially for the bottom line revenues of the school, if those classrooms are full. And the partnership aligns to increase the steady the enrollment count. So even if you increase year one, the idea is that ideally you'll get to a spot, not only are all seats full at charter capacity, but that you've built a waiting list so that in future years, should a family or two move away, you can always pull from the waiting list. We discussed a few things as far as what was successful in the past, and then the real key is like, what are your goals for this year, and what is your objective, and what does success look like going forward? And so as we discussed it, currently the enrollment, and I don't know if this is still true today, but it was at 156 students, I think, when we last spoke. McKenna, is that semi-accurate? Accurate it's still today, or
150 basically, with 10 pre-K students, but they're not fully funded.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. In Oregon, it's different. Yep. So the goal ideally next year would really be shooting for about 190 students, with the idea that, eventually you want to get to the max capacity, which sounds like from a facility standpoint and charter cap is about 225. Is that still pretty accurate too? See a few heads nodding. Yeah. It's a K-8 school. And obviously again, it's you haven't heavily marketed in the past. And what I mean by that is actually gone through the complete, website enhancement, search engine optimization, digital and social media, making sure all the channels are available, YouTube's, Instagrams, Facebooks, etc. And plus the sheer fact that the people running the school don't necessarily have the bandwidth to get to all these things that they'd like to do. And so with that, the idea behind the partnership is, first, what we really want to do is first understand who are you, what separates you, and what makes you unique. And again, these are considered to be story arcs. And so like our first foundational meetings is an establishing of, where have you been, where are you today, and where you're trying to go. What differentiates you. We could talk to parents, the school board, the leaders, find out really why they've chosen Mosier over other schools in the past. And what we want to do is try to create 3 to 4 compelling story arcs as the basis of what we're going to do moving forward. And so those 3 to 4 compelling story arcs could be teacher success, student success, parents that are thrilled with the school. and then carry those messages out into all media formats. This is just kind of based on a story, how we kind of bring some of the words and the wordsmithing of short, succinct messages into all media formats, whether that's, the email or blog post or websites or print collateral that you're going to have. But that is the foundation of what we do. We really focus quite a bit on the digital and the ground game campaigns, and we use the story arcs to drive the interest. And so some of this is going to be not only in the banners, yard signs, print collateral, but also any kind of social media updates, blog posts that we can put. We really want to brand the school, and everything from logos to coloring to concepts, things are, we'll dive in into the details of this and where we've seen different impact and some suggestions on things that could work, maybe better than it's currently being done. The website experience is real key. Obviously, I glanced at your website. One thing I did notice right off the bat, beautiful pictures right up front. It's very attractive. But for instance, what you have to keep in mind is the idea that you're selling not only to an existing clientele, but a new clientele. You're always marketing to new people and trying to attract new people. And it's sometimes the understanding, what are people's tendencies online, and as if they can't get their answers to the questions they have immediately within 10 to 15 seconds, oftentimes they'll just leave the site and go somewhere else. So the idea to be able to not only market and give your current clientele the calendar of events, the events, the programs, the things that they should all be aware of, is that you also simultaneously have to market to brand new people that are just searching and trying to find out what grade levels does this school serve or offer. Is it a good fit for me? What is their mission, their vision, kind of statements, maybe more pulled out in the front of it. Our team's pretty good about being able to modify existing websites. We don't necessarily come in and rebuild an entire website, but we can certainly make modifications to existing sites and give it a different look and feel to it as well. In particular, making sure that calls to action are pretty prominent on the site as well. The idea behind Grow Schools is this is a partnership. When you're not outsourcing the marketing efforts to us, everything you do is proprietary information. Everything we do for you is proprietary information for the school's behalf. We don't own anything. You own it. We don't believe that we should take over your social media controls. We don't think we should take over your website. We want to assist you in the matter and help you and teach you how to fish to make sure that you can do this ongoing on your own. And so what we'll do is implement best practices. But what we're really providing is a team of people that will be injected in meeting with your school on a weekly basis. So after the first initial call, we are going to set a calendar of events. The next slide kind of shows the calendar of events, but we want to put a content calendar together that will actually have milestones through the first month, the second month, the third month, the fourth month, and we will have a list of specifics that we'll be delivering on a weekly basis. But we want to meet with the key person that's going to, be able to kind of handle that. Now, obviously, they may not have the time to write the content, the blog post, the email post, making sure that we know what events should be marketed and, shown through, is that we're going to work on a lot of the story arcs, the focused on the enrollment marketing, social media feeds, the paid media searches, making sure that your website is actually being found in the top for one or two links. We use a lot of Google pay for advertisement links, a lot of Meta paid for advertisement links to drive traffic. We create a content calendar. We're going to do a lot of blog posts, a lot of content writing, website updates, online enrollment forms with landing pages, making sure you know where these landing forms are coming from. And then really trying to drive as much traffic, more phone calls, more forms being filled out, more people driving by the school. And we're more of that top of the funnel approach, working in partnership with your school. You'll actually get a content writer, a project manager, a bulk purchaser of advertisements, and even kind of a search engine optimization specialist put on the team, and we'll meet with you from like a half an hour to an hour a week, checking in, making sure that we're all on the same page and we're all driving as much traffic as through it. but the school's still got to do some work. Most of this comes around with like, when those calls come in, when those forms come in, who's dealing with them, who's taking them, how are they bringing them to fruition? You're looking to, assist with the filling, continuing to have open houses, opportunities to meet the principal, events that we should be aware of, and then still pushing out a lot of the stuff on the social media. We'll write the content, but then we ideally want you still controlling your own social media and pushing it out so that you know how to do it from years to come. And so with that, we have a lot of experience in here, and I do have examples of, what the challenge of the school is, the path we did, and how it had an impact on these schools. So some of these are testimonials, and I don't know if the board has access to the presentation already. If not, I'll make sure I can send this out right after this presentation so you can look at some more detail. But these are actually examples of work in schools that we've worked with. Again, you're going to get a content strategist, you're going to get a project manager, you're going to get the implementation and driving as much of this traffic throughout the entire process. And we do look at this as like a 9-month cycle. So ideally, a lot of times we'll start with schools in January. It's already February. This is key enrollment season. We need to get going kind of now. But the idea is that we're going to run a calendar all the way through October 31st. And the reason we go that deep into the year is simply because not only do we need to make sure that, people signed up, but we got to make sure that they show up to the first day of school, which means we need to market them once they've signed up all the way through. And then once they're in the seats, we need to tell the great stories and how happy and thrilled everybody is, because marketing is really an all year round, concept. And so we have a calendar where it runs through October 31st, because at that point we feel confident that not only are those kids show up, but they stayed in the seats and you're being paid on them. And you're going to recognize those payments, after October 31st, you're going to start to see some of those revenues coming in. Our success in this program over the last 5 to 6 years has been about a 15% increase across the board on all clients. We've had 100% growth across, meaning that, we've had success, a growth percentage that every school has grown a little bit. And on average, we've had about 750,000 in incremental revenue per school from net enrollment increases. And that, you have to keep in mind, we are a national company, so different states get different funding amounts. But, some schools like New York, they get 22,000 or so a student, whereas California, they probably get about 12 to 14. Oregon, not so much, somewhere in the $8,500 to $9,000 range. So the structure and the timeline, again, is this, and I apologize, I shouldn't say kicked off in January, it should be February now, is that we have a blended fee, fixed fee model plus a performance basis on top of it, or just a flat fee model. The reason we do this is only because schools sometimes like the budget on a monthly basis, know exactly what they're going to pay, no overages or not. Other schools feel like they want to make sure that what they're going to invest in is going to work and has some impact. So they're willing to pay a smaller base fee up front, with the idea that if we hit those metrics, we have to perform and actually show that our program works, and we're willing to do that. So what we would do is have a smaller fixed fee that you would pay over 9 months between now and October, and then there would be a performance fee based on the end. And the way that works is simply that you would we would take a baseline count during May 15th, I believe is what our baseline count would be for this year, because you should know what your final enrollment count is for this year by about that time. And then with that, we would then put another stake in the sand on October 31st and say, okay, you started at 150, we finished at 200 on October 31st, so we're going to bill you for 50 net new students. And it would be a percentage of revenues on the net new students only. We wouldn't pay you for the other, 150 you already had. And so 2 forms of how you can pay for it. And again, is all the work is yours. Everything's proprietary. All your technology, all your accounts are yours. We want to make sure that you're set up well. We can look at the different systems, how you're tracking things, give suggestions, tell you who and what has worked well for other clients. And you're always going to have access to everything, the story arcs, the branding, the digital, the ground game campaigns. Part of the fees, by the way, like our budget that we put forth on all these schools, is that, not only can we design a lot of the print collateral, but we can design it and print it and send it to you. so it would be inclusive in there. So instead of as just separate vendor doing the design and printed collateral, that will be inclusive in it in the budget. Because we can't be all places all times, remotely, you'd still have to put up the yard signs or hand out the flyers and so on. Some of the
Hey, Ryan,
Yep.
we got one question. Julia has her hand up.
Yeah.
You can decide whether you want to answer this now or later, but we have a lot of unevenness in where we really have capacity in the school. So the middle school has very small classes, but several of the elementary school classes are actually at pretty much at capacity. So I'd be curious if you would consider, or if just having a program that only recruited for the middle school was an option, and then how that might look or work. So I'm throwing that out there, and Matt in his ED report will give us a better sense of where we are for enrollment on the elementary, but my sense is elementary is pretty full, middle school has lots of room, and might be just also very different marketing for a middle school than an elementary school in our area.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, when you look at the whole school year, not only planning this year and, marketing approach, but for future years, and obviously the matriculation of kids from elementary into the middle school is ideal. We can certainly focus more efforts on there, but to distinguish and say flat out, we couldn't only market to middle school because it's one overarching school and one story. It would be difficult to kind of segment out those, just for middle school only. But we can certainly put all of our efforts, in particular as a game plan, is how do we attract more middle students, especially this first year. It's like, hey, that's where we're short. Let's, really focus on these grade levels. There's a number of ways and things. We've seen this across the board, across the country. Middle school is a weird time. Kids go from elementary school and they start looking towards the high school level. And things like sports start becoming important to those kids, extracurricular activities. And because of that, they already start looking forward to what high schools are going to go to. And it's a challenge. Middle school can be a challenge for a lot, but we have quite a bit of experience. But I don't know if we could set out some separate billings only. The goal, I think, as we kick off this together would be like, hey, this is really where our need is, and this is where our focus is, and how much efforts can we, go on the middle schools. A lot of this even goes through partnerships with and I don't know how your relationships are with other local elementary schools because you're competing with them, but figuring out ways that you can attract more of the middle school students is something we've faced, several times.
And then just a follow-up question. I mean, one of the things we don't know is what it is that's keeping our middle school numbers down. Is it as you suggest, like the lack of sports and extracurricular things? Is it or is it other things? And I wonder if you guys do any research into answering some of those questions. Trying to get to the root of what is it that is why is the middle school small? I understand wanting to attract more people, but if there's some kind of issue with the middle school and we don't solve it, we attract those people for a very short period of time potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from experience, there's a lot of variables involved. I mean, it's, certainly an age where kids start to come into their own and start to find different groups that they start to associate with, between different activities that they start to get more involved in, whether you offer them or not offer them, and then, what is it that they're seeking, or is it a higher academic standard that you're offering versus the local middle school, or is it, more extracurricular activities? That's going to be something that I think we have to look at from a local level first, and what you're finding and what you're seeing and what you're hearing. And sometimes you have more answers than we do locally, in that specific area than us, but we can generally speak to it. And that's something we could have further discussions with the marketing team, and I can even check in with them. Ashley McQuarrie runs the whole marketing department, and I can ask her, just from what is she seeing across the board, across the country, and, challenges with some of the middle school levels, to see if I can get some answers for you, whether you work with us or not. I'd be happy to see if I can just get some of those answers for you too. but I don't have specifics at the moment. I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question.
No, thank you.
So again, these are just kind of some calculations. We started back in 2018, 5 years. We've had 89 schools across 16 states, and culmination of that is about 5,000 net new students in those schools through the doors. And with that, we are used to work in every size school: new schools, rural schools, urban schools, mature schools, STEAM schools. It's across the board. Sometimes it's non-classroom based. So we have an experience across the board, and it's just really understanding your area as we start to kick it off and start to work with you. We also want to make sure that we're reporting back and giving you the actual ROIs and the data that you can start to track for future years, so you know where your money is best spent. The type of reporting, not only are we meet on a weekly basis and come back and say we've seen X number of new likes and X number of percentage of new followers. This is where, you can see 45% increase in organic searches. And those organic searches oftentimes aren't anything to do with the school name in them. It's things like best charter schools near me or best elementary schools near me kind of thing. And what we're wanting to do is really drive a lot of those organic searches where we see a lot of the impact. And the idea at the end of the day is we really want to make sure you're occupying that number 1 or 2 position on the, search engines for Google, and on specific phrases, something that makes you unique and what people are looking for, because you're looking for specific types of people that you want in your school. And it's an understanding of really what you're looking for too. But this is the kind of data that we'll report throughout the year. And then, some of the testimonials that we've had with people that we've worked with in the past. Again, you can read these afterwards. I don't want to bore and take up more time. Next steps, and this is just hypothetical. The idea is, if you want to do a line on an approach, as of today, it would probably take about 2 weeks at max to really complete the contract, because what we do is send out a contract, have you review it, redline it, look at it, make sure everything looks good, assuming that might take 2 weeks, on the long end. Just want to give you an idea. And then we could actually kick it off and get started right away. And, maybe in 2 weeks, the Monday, the 26th, to give you an idea of time frame, if it was something you were interested in. The way this looks is, the idea now is, if we started the program on February 26th, and if we can do the contractual stuff for sooner, we could push this up. But you'd have 2 basic pricing options. If you look at all the stuff that we're doing here, and I've done this with a number of schools where they've had a vendor for website, a vendor for search engine optimization, and a vendor for content writing, one for print collateral, and they start adding up all the fees they're paying to individual vendors, and you start to look at it like what that would cost. We feel we're pretty competitively priced, and for everything that we do, not only that, but we're teaching you how to fish. We're not taking it over and outsourcing it. We're actually trying to teach you how to fish, so that you can say to us at the end of a season, hey, you did a great job, but we don't need you anymore because we know how to do it now. We have a lot of schools that just say, hey, it's been great, but we still don't have the internal staff to run this, so we want to just keep you on. So option 2 is a flat fee. It's $88,000 billed out. Now, it normally was 10 months. Now it's 9 months because it's condensed, so it would be $88,000 for the whole season through October. And so you just get a bill every month at 1/9 of $88,000. The option 1 is the blended fee that I spoke of before. Instead of that base fee encompassing everything, it's more of a risk reward concept where, we're still going to have to charge some kind of base fee because we're spending so many dollars out of pocket up front for these schools, between all the click for advertisements and content and personnel and everything else and print collateral. The base fee covers some of our expenses at $27,500, and that $27,500 would be billed out over 9 months. And so you just pay once a month that. You wouldn't get any other bill until at the end of the enrollment season on October 31st. We would ask for another baseline enrollment count, the same one we took in May. And I'm sorry, I got a dog that is just, for some reason, got a ball trapped under something and it's just squeaking. So that's in the background. And so the October 31st, 2024, we would take that enrollment count, make a net increase of what it was in May, and then we would bill you on November 15th with the idea that you would have a net 30 payment. Again, the pay for performance fee is an $1,100 a student for the net increase in students. And so the way to think about it and the way you look at it is, and we say, hey, we don't care. You can choose how you want to pay for it. It's up to you. But if you thought, like, hey, if we went through this whole season and growth schools did not, increase the enrollment at all, and you literally had a 0% difference, at the end of the day, you would only been out 27.5 for all the effort put forth for a season, whereas on the flat fee, you would have spent 88,000. If we were to have increased enrollment by 25 students, you would notice that the revenue increase at about $8,500 a student down here would equate to about $212,500 to the school, and you would have spent $55,000 total for that amount. 88,000 for the flat fee, it still is 88,000. And then this is where if you really thought like it was going to have a huge impact and you could imagine a 100-kid increase, then you'd start to say, well, obviously, maybe the flat fee is a better way to go. So we only put this out just to make sure schools are thinking about it and thinking about what their upside is and how they'd like to pay for it. We are regionally exclusive. We will not compete with your school, with another school in the area at all. Yeah, they would have to be, at least 10 miles away, and we'd still be checking in, making sure you're not pulling students from the same grade levels from the same areas. So we do keep it exclusive in that regard. So outside of there's a bunch of support documentation in here in the back, between who we are, testimonials, and then a lot of examples of work we've done for different schools throughout there. And that is all I got. So hopefully it wasn't too long and painful.
Go ahead, McKenna.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. One of the things that we had brought up last time when we were having the board discussion was maybe focusing our attentions on after-school programs to increase enrollment. While we certainly have clubs, we don't necessarily have it every single day after-school program. So that was one of the competing ideas. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's, a big selling point to have it and to be, the more that you have to offer the parents in particular nowadays, where there's a lot of times you're getting both working parents that, somebody can't be there to pick up, drop off for a certain time. The more services, wraparound services you're providing as a school is a huge selling point for a lot of parents, particularly those driving further distances. And we've seen great results from those that not only provide either before or after or both, school care, either a few days a week or all days of the week. That's a big draw. I mean, cost of, finding somebody else to find, or to take care of that can be pretty costly for parents. So anything you can do in that realm is a big selling point. Two is any other additional social services that the school could start to partner with. I've seen great results from communities where they're building a sense of community around the school, and whether it's partnering with a local foundation that provides some kind of healthcare services or clothing or food banks and things of that nature, you start to get more of a sense of community about how the whole community is benefiting around the school. And something to keep in mind as you look at your mission, your vision, how do you want to be seen in the community around there? Are you a focal point in something that's there long term too? I've just seen a lot of success from schools that take that into consideration and really, try to get involved that way.
Thanks, Ryan. Are there any other board members or anyone else who have questions for Ryan based on his presentation here? We've had this stuff to think about for a couple months now.
Quick question, Ryan, maybe two of them. The 15% average, does that reflect schools of all sizes, including our size on up?
Yeah, that's across the board. That's like an average when we just said across the board. Am I still here?
Yes.
Okay. I just clicked the screen and everything went off. So, okay. Yeah, that's it. We just took like across the board snapshot. What have we said when we look at good, bad, and indifferent? And I got to be honest, like when we first started this program, we didn't necessarily have success with every client. And so when we had to say, not excluding the highs and the lows, this is just an all-in average across the board. We've seen that 15%, but we've had small mom and pop shops in very rural areas where they literally pulled from like a 1 mile or 2 mile demographic, only walking kids within a city like LAUSD kind of thing, to schools that have kind of a hybrid online learning model that could pull a lot of kids from a wide area. And so I think that's just an average snapshot across the board. We just said we weren't going to eliminate highs and lows and just take them all into consideration, and that's where we ended. But in the
Okay.
beginning, we learned a lot the first couple of years. We learned a lot. I think, like we in fact, I'll be honest, we also had at one point 100% pay for performance only model where it was literally you don't pay anything and we only bill you for a net increase in students. Now that net increase in students percentage of revenues was significantly higher. So there was a big upside to, on our side. But there's not much we can do. We've run into schools that we brought in a significant number of new students, new families, yet the attrition on the back end really hurt us because the net new students didn't change. Even though we had done our job, they had an internal issue with with the attrition on the back end, where people were leaving. So we've had those situations. We've had it where I don't think we've had a situation where the school never said, we weren't thoroughly impressed with the efforts and the team and how much we enjoyed working with them and how much we learned. It didn't work out for one reason or another. Sometimes it's a facilities issue. We have schools in that, and again, California is a big example, but they're buried, co-located on a district school site, and they're in the back corner of a building, and parents or people don't even know how to get to them, in the back. So we're not perfect, but I would say I've been unbelievably impressed about the response because usually I'm the person meeting all of you and talking to you up front and talking about how great we are, and then handing them off to the marketing team when they actually start working with your people. And at the end of the day, the relationships that are built over a 9 to 10 month period of time, our people know your school inside and out and know exactly, who you're targeting, have had the experiences and really care about your success in all of this. So I feel confident in that. I'm not worried about introducing our team and you guys being thrilled with the people you're getting on board. So,
Well, I happen to know some of your marketing people out here that actually live in Hood River, so are quite familiar with Mosier School, which helps.
oh, cool. Very nice.
Marie, you've got your hand raised.
Thanks for your presentation. And I really just, because this is your field of work, I'm just curious what you think about the current climate. Nationally enrollment is down, and in Oregon, we have, I think, the last data I saw from the National Center for Education Statistics showed from 2022 that Oregon had about the fourth largest decline in enrollment at just over or just under 5.5%. I think it was like 5.46.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, you had mentioned earlier in your presentation about some of the, things that are contributing to that, but I just was wondering with, what's happening in the Oregon legislature right now, I don't know if you have any thoughts or on where we might be headed as a state. Just if we're seeing.
Well, where we're seeing the biggest impact is not so much in the more rural communities. It's actually impacting the city significantly more. And the reason being is sheer cost of living adjustments. People do not have to live in the city anymore to work there. Now, all of a sudden, through COVID, everybody experienced this world of you can work remotely and work from home. So now people don't have to be downtown. They're frustrated with the city the cities in particular, there's issues of houselessness, drugs, crime that are elevating, and people are somewhat frustrated and moving out of the cities more so. But what we're seeing, like for instance, I do a lot of work in California, let alone, Oregon and West Coast. I also do work in the East Coast. We're noticing even a lot more of the demographics moving more inland, like say from the coastal areas, from like an LA or San Diego inland into California, because the cost of living, the cost of housing is cheaper or more affordable, and the actual job opportunities are there. Out in your area, I don't know if you're experiencing or seeing any kind of migration of people coming out, or population densities, increasing at all, or are you experiencing, from what you see locally, also people kind of migrating away or moving out? Because I don't know the specifics of, Mosier right there, and to know exactly how it's being impacted, but it seemed like, I've known quite a few people heading out the gorge area, out into the Dalles or out that way. And so I was kind of curious, are you feel like you're experiencing a decline locally quite a bit?
Well, we've seen a decline at the school. At the same time, I meet folks moving to the area.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I don't feel comfortable answering that question. I don't know the
Yeah.
data.
Well,
Um,
I mean,
but
it,
yeah.
I was going to say, to answer your question, we're seeing the biggest migration, the declines in enrollment generationally too. There's fewer kids being, born with the new generation. So from the lower grade levels, you'd think you'd see a bigger impact, but it sounds like your elementary school grade levels are still strong.
Mhm.
What that impact looks like long term downstream will be interesting. But what we're seeing is the city's being hit harder than any other areas. And that's where we're seeing the declines in enrollment and people migrating out quite a bit. Not across the board in all areas. We've seen a lot of some more rural areas, to be honest, some more conservative areas, kind of increasing. States like Idaho, and people moving out of like
Yeah,
Portland.
North Dakota, I think
Yeah,
also.
yeah. I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of variables impacting this, but like, I think, the more remote, more rural areas are actually getting the benefit of this, I think.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julia.
I'm just curious, our school is obviously relatively rural. We're definitely not an urban school. And I think a lot of, how people come here and is not happening online, and it's not online searches or advertising. It's a lot of word of mouth and one family talking to another. So if you could just speak a little bit to that kind of community and experience. And then I have a really just practical question, which is, I know that there's some students that are currently on the wait list to get into our school for like already on the list for next year. Would those students count as students?
It would depend if we were, like, kind of when we took baseline counts, like if you've already got them enrolled, and, we could set I mean, do you think you'd have them enrolled before May, but, before they're deciding to go to the next year, or when do you actually enroll those students?
I don't know. That's a question for Jen and Matt, but maybe you could speak to my first question just about working in this kind of community as opposed to sort of a big urban
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients in other rural areas that we've had a lot of success with, Indiana type, rural markets. And so it's just a different, what you're going after. Sometimes it's a bigger ground game, like we spend less resources if you believe that, there's less digital impact. At the end of the day, let's face it, though, nowadays everybody has one of these, period. And whether you're rural and not rural, and people are on social media and they're looking at Facebook or Instagram or YouTube and searching, what's near me, food near me. So there is some kind of impact of that nowadays. It's just a technology-based world. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's going to be a lot more word of mouth, but still, the more stories and compelling story arcs you can create, either through, whatever marketing efforts you can put forth, is telling those great stories and having those parents, the word of mouth concept, promote you, that's still going to be part of it. But, hopefully that's the best situation you can possibly have, is to have a word of mouth type school. I have some that you've told me, we don't need your services. We got a waiting list of 500 kids, and it's all word of mouth. And if you have that, that's great. I mean,
You're searching for food near me in Mosier. You haven't been in town very long.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. I'm just saying, like, and again, if, like, we, all we can do is put our best for, what we know and how we can help. And what we can help with is all the things you may or may not have time to get to, and all the marketing efforts. And if you don't feel like it's going to make an impact, I totally understand. And if it's going to be word of mouth, I don't, hopefully a lot of those parents are going to tell a lot of people good things. So
I think that your point of, yes, we maybe haven't gotten a lot of new enrollment from the web, probably because we haven't invested in that part of it. And since we are seeing the enrollment declining, that's a clear opportunity of where we could start getting more enrollment and more messages for people to speak to on the word of mouth front. So once they have that good video or that good feedback from past students and parents, then it can be passed on, working together.
sometimes, it's even take a look and just say, do some Google searches on yourself, and just say, hey, best elementary schools in, Hood River area, that kind of thing, and see where you are showing up. If you're showing up, where you're showing up, and just keep in mind, as people think about potentially moving out in those areas, that's probably where they're going to start, looking at the best elementary schools, what's available. And, if it's not at least in the first few to 10 or so, I don't know if they're going to keep clicking down and keep looking, so the idea is you want to be at least seen right away and have that first opportunity for somebody to click and try to learn about you. So
Go ahead, Emily.
I'm just thank you, Ryan, for hanging out with us at 8:13 in the evening and sharing all that information. It's helpful. I just had a process question. Is this an informational conversation today, or are we trying to make some kind of decision? I wasn't quite sure.
for me, that's
I'm sorry.
okay,
More
the board,
yeah.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So when we left it last time, there was some interest in, building this into a marketing budget for next year. But for this year, if this was something we wanted to do, we would need to have a private donor for that initial 27,000. And I believe that was the consensus by the team. I think there's a lot of value in moving forward and getting this moving, so we can make sure that we're having a actual full school as much as possible next year. I think that's everyone's goal, and knowing that we can ensure that we have funding for teachers, for programs, we have new volunteers that aren't burnt out and are ready to be helpful. So I think it's one of those, enrollment can help us in every aspect of the school. Something I would be excited to move forward with. If we did have any sort of funding now marketing budget that we haven't dipped into, we have not been able to explore that yet, as far as I know, unless somebody else has. So it would be up to that private donor if everybody is willing.
And do we have a private donor?
Possibly.
Paid for almost $30,000 of investment.
I have a verbal, but I'm not ready to say 100% yet.
I just had confirmation from an anonymous donor that they'll put in 3,000 towards it. So, which is different than whoever McKenna is talking about.
Great.
Yeah. And 3,000 is different than 30,000.
Right. But I mean, if someone else is willing to put money in. Ryan, my question for you is, does your presentation and the cost of your presentation, is it a one size fits all, or is it something that you tailor for the size of the school? I know that the work on your end is the same. But if you think about the client paying for the work, when you have, you know, a very small school versus a very large school or a large district, that the ability for the school to pay is, you know, all over the map.
Yeah, I mean, we do take into consideration the per student revenue by state as well. And so like the price that I'm showing you is based on schools that are below a certain tier. I can tell you like the California other markets, you know, the base fee even on the hybrids higher than, you know, the 27.5. We've had to take that into consideration. The other part is just the cost of our efforts. Like we put in tens of thousands of dollars into the effort, you know, with the idea that we're hopefully going to have some kind of upside on that hybrid. We know we got to meet, you know, and have cover our costs and have some margin on it. But I don't think there's much we can do. It's not going to be an a la carte situation. It would still be a holistic approach to how are we going to help you and drive as much traffic as possible. So I can go and see if there's any chance understanding size of the school where you're at. I can say that there are schools that we've worked with that are smaller than you know, like 100 students versus like 150 or so, you know, and really trying to drive the traffic up because like, you know, every new student helps, right, to the bottom line revenues. And that's the idea, is to try to drive the revenues. At the end of the day, I don't know. I'll check with Ashley and see if there's anything we can do, but I think I'm going to be pretty handcuffed when it comes to any kind of pricing adjustments based on our cost and understanding our cost over the last 5 years. I think we've analyzed it pretty closely. I can tell you this is not a big revenue producer for the company. Like this is not a big revenue stream for us. This is a complementary service. Our core business is actually facilities and purchasing facilities on behalf of schools and, you know, providing 20 to 40-year lease agreements, and then bond structure where we actually transfer ownership into a nonprofit real estate holding company that actually does a tax exempt bond issuance. That's our big driver. The money to run the school helps those schools that we're already serving. That the enrollment is to make sure the kids are, you know, those seats are full for those agreements. But it's also a great door opener, a way for us to learn more about schools, what's going on in the communities. And, you know, so we certainly provide it as a solo, you know, service. But I don't think we're gonna necessarily keep the doors open on the service alone. You know, like we're pretty thin here already.
Understood. Thank you for explaining that.
Yep.
Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I just have another question. We are in the process of searching for a new executive director. And I wonder, have you had experiences, or what have your experiences been with schools that may be in a transitional period, especially as it relates to the branding and some of the visioning mentioned in your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to get ahead of it. You know, it's either you can produce a bunch of excitement about a new, you know, executive director or leader that's coming into the school and kind of promote that aspect versus a reactionary, you know, type marketing effort towards somebody left, we're in limbo, and we don't really have a story to tell around it. And so it kind of depends on, you know, how you're choosing to deal with it in the community. You know, do people, is it providing or creating angst amongst parents and uncertainty, or is it something you can kind of get ahead and start telling the story of what we're really trying to do? We're trying to find the perfect, you know, executive, perfect fit for the community. We're excited about it, you know, type of messaging versus the other way. So, and I don't know necessarily the backstory, if it was good, bad, or indifferent from the previous leader, you know, and then it's a matter of, you know, kind of making sure you're making those marketing efforts around that storytelling as well, too. But something we've had experience with. We've had other schools in similar situations that we certainly have been through this before and understand what to probably do and don't do. So.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan, for answering our questions. McKenna, do you feel we're at a good point to move to the next item, unless people have more questions, and then we can follow this back up with how our fundraising on the private side is doing for this?
Sounds great.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Ryan? Ryan, thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. And I appreciate the work you're doing. I've I trust that it's a great product, and we're just in a spot right now in our school. We have to make some decisions, and I think it's one of those things where you need to spend money to make money, obviously, and so we're going to need to make some decisions on that going forward. But I appreciate your time, and we'll hopefully be in touch soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all that you guys do. You're all here at 8:30 on a Monday night, committing to a school. So hats off to you all. Please let me know if there's anything I can answer. If there's other questions that come up later, feel free to email me, McKenna, and I'm happy to answer them. And hope you all have a great night, and thank you for your time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to item number 9 on our agenda, which is our consent agenda. Did everyone have a chance to read over the check register that was sent out? And does anyone have any questions over any of the charges there? Okay, then generally we just need to approve the register as seen. May I get a second? Thank you, Belia. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes. That brings us to item number 10, which is the ODE early literacy grant, which you covered in the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions about that? And Jen, you can go ahead and correct me, but it's just an approval of the method for paying for, or the method for. Can you just give us a quick overview so I make sure I understand what we're.
Yeah, so we just needed a vote on how we allocated those funds. And Dan, I don't know if you want to pop that up again so everyone can just see, because we just need a vote from the board that they approve it.
A second, I'll get that up here.
I think it's towards the end. You'll see, yeah.
This one here.
Yep, that's the first year. Yep.
Okay, does anyone have any questions over this? You went over this in the last meeting that I was absent at. Is that correct?
Yeah. And it was very specific what we could spend it on. So those were the areas that we were allowed to spend it on.
And this is last year's, and so this is this upcoming year here.
Yes, this is next year. Yep, and the other one with this year.
Okay. And so what you need to see from the board is an approval of the way that we're spending the money.
Yep. Yep, how we allocate it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions before I make motion? Okay. I propose that we approve the methods for allocating this money over the 23, 24, 24, 25 budget cycles from ODE's early literacy grant. Can I get a second? I can't see everybody else, so you have to speak up. Thank you, McKenna. All those in favor? Any opposed, voice or opposition, please? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for bringing that back up. I wasn't aware that we needed to approve that, so I'm glad we got that done.
I was not either, so thank you.
All right, 1 second here.
Oh, I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
McKenna.
McKenna did.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our treasurer's report with Avelia. Do you need me to pull that document up, Avelia?
No, I have it right in front of me.
Okay.
So currently we do have 180 enrollment funding, and it's every 2 years, so we will be having to pay back some money now that the enrollment funding reporting and money will be coming up this next school year. So that's something that we will have to budget in with our business manager. So just for everyone to keep that in mind. The audit.
Can I provide some context for that?
Mm-hmm.
So for board members who haven't been a part either of the conversation we had with D21 the other day or just in years past, we set our enrollment projection out for 2 years, and then if we're over enrolled or under enrolled, we either pay money back or we're owed money based on the number of students we have at a certain date. So there's a couple times a year when these dates are pulled where they say, okay, how many students do you have? And then they're giving us the money based on whatever the projection is. In the end, if we have less students, then we owe money back. If we have more students, then we're owed money. So currently, because we have less students under our projection that we were funded at, we'll owe that money. And in the past, we set it aside in an account so that the money is waiting to be paid back. Last year, we got paid $90,000 more because the previous years we had higher enrollment than we were budgeted for. So that number is something we can set over time. Sorry, Adelia, to hijack some of your meat, but I just want everyone to understand how that works. Any questions on that?
What was the number? What were we projected at?
180 was what we were funded at.
Yep. Thank you, Dan, for doing that. Our audit has been granted to be extended through the Secretary of State to June 30th, 2023, which sounds pretty far, but I'm sure that we're going to be cutting it pretty close. The school district, and Dan will probably talk a little bit more, is looking into e-finance for payroll support. Where Dan will also touch more on having to reallocate some of the ESSER funds. We learned that there are some allocations that aren't accepted for ESSER, so we'll have to, but we have a lot of facilities, projects, and safeties that have been are being done or have been done that can be allocated. The W-3 have been e-filed through the IRS. We're double checking with the Oregon side now. We're working through those glitches, and hopefully once we do have that new business manager, we are able to get those sound. W-3 filings are pretty much the W-2 summary reports that need to be filed within federal and state agencies. We also were able to check balances on cash accounts with Dan. We worked today with Alyssa on QuickBooks. QuickBooks has been, it's one of the problems per se for the whole business manager position and our accounts. It is outdated. QuickBooks will be eventually not doing more updates within the desktop version. There's a lot of mapping and some confusion with the desktop version. It doesn't allow for a lot of remote work to be done. So QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks professionals would be helping us hand by hand to do a migration. They have a lot of experience, and the migration, they say that usually runs pretty smooth. I know that that's not always the case. But it does take them 30 minutes to migrate everything from the desktop version to the online features. And then it's all the work of just making sure that all of that migration reporting, accounts, gets fixed and reorganized pretty much, because all the active and inactive accounts will be available through the online version as well. So we wouldn't be losing data at all. And the accounts do not have to be reconciled for this migration. So we can actually move all this migration now, just to have people who will be coming in to help to have much more ease and also ability to be able to see our accounts. So with the migration, it also helps us to be able to change all of the admin. Currently there is the primary admin still goes pretty back. And that has been a complication for our current business manager, just because there's a lot of limitations when you're not the primary admin to add users or to even speak and get additional information. So with this migration, it would also help us ease of having a primary admin And from there, that primary admin can add users. With the QuickBooks that we're proposing is the advanced feature with the core for payroll. And what that pretty much means is we would have the whole scope of benefits that QuickBooks Online offers, which is ability to invoice, pay bills, pay subs, direct deposits for employees, have workforce for employees, which includes them being able to update and file their W-4 information online, having timesheets that are lined and are also time-stamped. And this would also allow for a lot of different reporting to be automatically done. I can get in much more details of all of the features. Please let me know if I should. If not, I'm just going to touch base on what is much more important. Pretty much it would allow us to have one single place where we can make sure that all of our accounts are being managed in. This would also allow QuickBooks to do the payroll liabilities payments as well as the filings, and they would be if there would be a filing or late fee while they're running that aspect of payroll within state and federal, they would take care of those expenses if they committed some type of error per se. Our business manager would still have to manually do all the garnishments. So all of the health benefits and other deductibles that need to be paid off, those would still be manually having to be done, but it would ease the responsibility of the liability and the filings for the payroll aspect. There is no cost for the migration to happen, but it would be for nonprofits. They would do $100 a month for the QuickBooks Advance, $40 a month of payroll plus $8 per employee. There would be no fees for any subs. So if we, especially now that we're going to be moving forward with facilities, if we need to pay out subcontractors and contractors, those can be inputted and be kept track of adequately and paid directly that way as well. And I guess one of the things I also want to talk about is the users. It's really important who can be users and who should be having access to information. There is users. The primary admin is usually the person that will be in, and it's much more of a longer process to take a primary admin off, except if the primary admin changes that admin role while they're still in active within the school. But then you can have admin rights, which pretty much allows to change, delete, add. It would also give two accounts for accountants or CPA. So this would also be an ease for reporting and just transparency when we have audits or when we have a CPA coming on board, because their version of sides looks different. And then users, they can be up to 25 users. I don't see why we would need so many, but usually it's recommended to have, for example, who's working directly on your books, and then maybe having some view options for those who need to work with some of the budgeting, because there are view options where you can go in and see reports, but not necessarily being able to edit anything. Any questions?
Sounds great.
Thanks, Avelia.
Yeah, thank you.
Great report.
There are two action items in Avelia's report.
Yes.
The first, go ahead.
Sorry. So before the action items, I do want to say there is payroll corrections that need to happen. But we will work through those. And once we have people onboarded, those will, and with QuickBooks Online features, they will help us calculate and have to fix any of those calculation errors. because they're currently being done manually. And so that's a lot of room for error that can happen. And they won't do it in one paycheck. They'll just spread it out to make sure that that isn't felt. But still, being that said, we payroll does run every 28th. It is not a good idea to try to do that migration before then, just in case we need information. And like I say, not all migration always flows smoothly. So if we need to, as we get new W-4 forms, as we make sure that everything is ready to set, I would recommend migration not to happen after payroll. I would highly recommend that. And also by then, hopefully we have our team set and they're ready to roll with this new online features benefits. And then also the admin piece. I would like to have some conversations of who you guys think should be primary admin for this account. And then users can be added, for example, the business manager's email as a general user as a manager for right now. So I'm open to thoughts or questions.
Amelia, do you have suggestions on who should be that primary admin?
My suggestion is that someone that is familiar within QuickBooks Online and that could add users. We would need meeting notes to be able to make sure that this migration happens. And probably within those meeting notes be very specific what is the responsibility of that primary admin. I would usually recommend that would to be the ED, but we are in a transitional state, which so I would, and we are also in that same state for the business manager. So maybe someone from the board. I'm not sure what the intake is there.
Probably having you be the primary admin is the most appropriate. And then you can add other admins. You know, if we can have up to 25, then having you do that, then you can add obviously Alyssa there, and then whoever else needs to be brought on board. Does anyone have any other questions or comments on that? Suggestions? Go ahead, Marie.
That sounds like a very reasonable idea to me.
So go ahead, Emily.
I'm just wondering, what do you think about that, Amelia? Is that okay with you?
That's okay with me. I would use it to be in the meeting notes, very specific that my role is to make sure that the pertinent people have access, just because we are in a transitional phase right now. And I can always transfer that primary admin role as we are set.
Maybe it's one of those things we add in that the treasurer is always on there. So there's some continuity through the board. Okay, I just want to make sure we'll have this discussion, but then we capture the motions appropriately.
Yes, so motion, I wanted to make a motion to have the migration from the current desktop version that we have to the online features using the advanced and the core for payroll benefits after the 28th of February for payroll to be run using the current system that we're in.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And the second motion is to have, I guess, should someone else be doing this motion since
No, you can do it. You're allowed to make a motion. I can always just say no. That's the board chair, but you're welcome to make a motion.
Okay. I make the motion to have myself, Amelia Lucchino, as primary admin, and add as admin the business manager's email, and as guided continue to add users.
I would make
Can
one edit to that to say that
Mhm.
have you as treasurer, or have the
Yes.
board treasurer, currently Avelia, as that in that role, in that position. So it's not just you, but it's that position longstanding.
Perfect.
Would you mind restating it with that as the case?
Yes, so I make a motion for the board treasurer, acting treasurer, to be the primary admin and add the business manager's general email as the admin and continue to add, role and users as needed. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion
Motion
passes.
passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to, thank you, Avelia, for your treasurer's report and the work that you're doing on that end. It's noted. You got a lot going on. Thank you. And that brings us next to item number 12, which is our MTA report.
Sorry
there.
Hello. Sorry we can't have video. It's not working, but we're here. We're in our pajamas. We're here.
No, we're not in our pajamas.
Welcome.
So we'd love to report. Every month we put out a note to people asking for reports on what's going on in their classrooms, and we do it for the entire school. And we get different responses different times. So tonight, Fern and Billy report that they're finishing the narratives that they'd been working on and will be sharing them at conferences this week. The students wrote and illustrated a story about something they did or something that happened to them. Janet Baker reports that they are talking about animal groups, where they live, what they eat, and what animal groups and families are a part of. They'll be creating lots of fun animal arts and crafts and diving into all kinds of literature to learn about animals. In their classroom, they'll have a veterinary hospital to care for their pets. And Sarah Grace and Anne Marie report that in 4th and 5th, 2024 is in full swing. The students just finished the Percy Jackson novel, and they saw the play last week in Portland. They're going to watch the movie during their Valentine's party this week, and they will be comparing and contrasting it with the book and the play. They're in their 3rd week of Secrets with the Discovery Center, and the kids are having a blast. And then a side note from Sarah Grace, she says she wants to personally say how unbelievably thankful she is that the heater is on all day at school. It's made a huge difference in teaching this year. A little bit of levity. From 2nd and 3rd, Mary Ellen and myself, we report that the whole month of February has been celebrations and learning. We started off with the Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, and we're going into Black History Month near the end of the month of February. And the kids are having a good time learning about all those things. And we just finished up our snowflake unit, which the kids thoroughly enjoyed. We have a report from middle school, Melina Hogue. She reports, I have looked at my iReady data from the winter diagnostics, and I'm very happy with the results. In all my classes, 60% of the students are at or 1 grade level behind. This is a huge win in my eyes. My students show that they took this test seriously, and I am confident that the data shows an accurate picture of where they really are. I truly see the benefit of having a teacher for multiple years. I am excited to see what growth will happen in the spring. The middle school has started electives again, and I look forward to teaching math help, as well as supervising the elementary teaching assistants. Math help was greatly missed by the students and by me. This session, I even have an 8th grader as a teaching assistant to help with grading and homework for the younger grades. It's awesome. So thus ends our report.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the MTA report. Well, it's good to hear that. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, I was just going to say thanks for sticking around and providing it.
You're
Yeah,
very welcome.
It's a long
Absolutely.
night. We're sorry for this. Yeah, it was great to see to hear the positives that we have going on there in the school, and that gives us all energy for the work that we do. So thank you, and it's appreciated.
Thank you
That
for
brings it-
making time for us to do so. Appreciate that.
That brings us to item 13, which is our executive director report. Matt, would
Hey,
you like me to pull it up on the screen?
It's up to you. If everyone has it, Dan, my goal is really just to hit a few brief things. And if folks have questions later after this meeting, anytime, they are more than welcome to call or reach out to me. I'm actually going to start. There's a reference to Margaret Elkins, who is producing a newsletter for us for the Columbia Community Connection. It's a digital news source. And in that, for example, she has developed a nice little paragraph promoting our school. And here are 2 or 3 quotes from students that she was able to grab. I'm going to Mosier Community School because everyone knows everyone, and I love that we have hands-on projects. That's a middle school student. I love that there is a garden outside. That's a 2nd grade student. I love the teachers are nice because they make me smart. Grade 2 student. Last one, I really love the clubs, the OBOB, which is the book thing, the cross country team. They're really cool. It was also really cool to have a part in the plays and the drama club. So that's a middle school student. So you can see even with the middle school references that we only have upward to go, because many of the middle school kids love and thrive in the environment. So that will be coming out soon. We have a link with the Hood River Chamber of Commerce. Now I'm going to visit with a Lions Club representative actually tomorrow, I believe. The conferences start, as you all know, tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. I'm going to just frankly reach out to some people to try to build up the facility committee, wellness committee, and hopefully some type of a safety committee. I know there'll be staff. I'd like to reach out to board and community people as well. 2 awards to Miss Bindiger and Miss Wagner from the STEM Hub Award, and they both together received $1,000. It's a STEM award, so that was a great honor for them. I just found out about that last week. The busing survey just simply needs to be tabulated, so Jen and I will be working on that hopefully this week. The calendar is pretty much done. We almost brought it tonight, but I got an email from the superintendent in the Dalles, and I want to visit with our team more and show Dan and Julia before we get it to you guys next month. But we have good input from the MTA and others on next year's calendar. So we'll have that for you guys for sure. You can see some of the professional development that's been happening. This Friday, the 16th, we'll have a PLC around the iReady data system, which Melina was probably referencing there in her awesome assessment of how well she's doing with her kids. And the business manager I mentioned, their last day is the 22nd. And the extension I mentioned, the facilities document I sent via email. If you guys have any questions, if you are able to see that, basically the gates we're hoping to go up this week. 2 doors will go up. I don't know about the gates actually, but we're getting really close on the fence. And the doors are scheduled this week. The sheetrock in the annex restroom is completed. We're We're going to be waiting for camps, plumbing to come back out and get that retested. It's all in that document. Got those important permits. We're excited about the nutritional growth in our program that Dawn's been working on. So we're looking forward to that. And you can see it does down the road, probably sooner and later. And Jen are working on, and I are looking at a additional potential halftime TA. So maybe that would work well with this kitchen halftime person if we can get there. And you can see the numbers, the very back of that report, simply very little change. I talked to Daphne, we see waiting lists, you know, in those lower grades. And there was a couple of little increases since the last time I mentioned that. So there is capacity there. And I'm impressed with whichever direction we go as far as marketing the school into the future. And we're in a time of growth right now as far as facilities and opportunities. And I think with a new person coming in, it's just a pivotal point, but it's also a very positive future. So if there's any questions at all now or later, just let me know. And then, Dan, if there is no questions, I did want to recommend for the board.
We've got two hands up here real quick.
Okay.
First, Avelia, you had your hand up earlier, and then I feel it's probably the same question or more of the questions you had earlier, and then we'll get to Emily.
Okay. I guess the first one is, well, I guess they're not very questions. The first one is maybe we should check in with the school district. I know when we talked to them, they said that due to snow days that there are some changes to this school year's calendar. So that probably is a good idea to check back, Matt, to get those dates taken care of as soon as possible.
Yep.
And then the second, I just wanted to do an acknowledgement and thank Brent Foster. He's been doing and pulling so much. He's pulling up additional people. He's really trying to get middle school students into their space. And I know he's going above and beyond with his work and volunteer. So I just wanted to give that little time to give him that acknowledgement.
Well, if I could respond to that, many places, many schools do end up acknowledging people by naming buildings or whatever. So maybe down the road, that might be something you guys have the honor to consider.
Yeah, he's providing a lot of his time for a lot of different parts of our school right now. So it's, yeah, we wouldn't be where we are without him.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, my question, I'm just looking at the numbers on the waiting list, and I just need a little bit of help. So that is, we've talked about how our enrollment is low. So our enrollment's low for this school year, and all those waiting list numbers are for next school year. Is that right?
Correct.
So
24, 25.
yeah. So I just wonder, like, if the waiting list, it looks like nearly every single grade has a waiting list for next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm like feeling disconnected.
No, I totally get where you might be. And I think part of it I would hopefully be able to give some light on is like the lower grades. It might simply be a waiting list due to age. It might be a waiting list due to circumstances of, you know, people moving into the area or not quite ready for a variety of different reasons. But believe me, if there is any Emily student and family who is seeking to get into the school right now, we would be signing them up unless there was a huge waiting list already in place for this year, and that does not exist. So okay. These are for 2024, 25 future.
So does that mean that 2025 school year has more than capacity and those folks are on a waiting list because that school year's capacity is met, or they're on a waiting list because they do not want to come until that school year. So it's just
It's basically the second, I would say. The best way I could answer that.
okay, so
And-
none of those numbers on the waiting list for next year want to be going to Mosier Community School this year.
Not that I'm
Correct.
aware of.
Right, and Daphne is most likely what she does is she'll start creating a list of people who are inquiring about the following year.
Okay.
But
And
in real time though, if anyone was to want to, we've already taken in a few kids this year.
yeah,
If you would.
I ask because it's cute. It's kind of confusing. And there's this like local Facebook moms group where moms are constantly like, hey, where should I send my kid to school? I hear Mosier Community School has a wait list. So when you hear that, it makes it seem like you can't come into this school when you actually can. So I would like rephrase how we're like stating that.
No, good distinction. I've probably asked her to send out at least 3 or 4 alerts.
Yes.
Open to enrollment.
Yeah, and I actually shared that last alert that you sent with that Facebook group, but there's a disconnect because in the Gorge generally there's been this thought, or I don't know if this was the truth in the past, where you only can go to Mosier Community School if you live in Wasco County or Mosier, and that there's a wait list. So it just like that's kind of the story, the narrative that's been told for so long. So there might be some simple ways for us to update it to actually, if you want to go to Mosier, well, you can.
Well, I think it's also
Mhm.
because years ago, we did always have a wait list. And if, people from Hood River want to go, so let's say they're saying, we want to put our kids next year. We just always have to take anyone from Wasco County first. And then if we have space, then we'll take people from Hood River. Unfortunately, I don't know what list you're talking about, but I have a feeling it's kind of Daphne, people telling her, we want to bring our kids there next year. So she's putting them on a list so that we have them in a spot for next year so that, in case enrollment, picks up, that they're guaranteed a spot for next year.
Yeah, so that narrative in my interpretation of it is sort of out there. So it's an excellent point, Emily. However, at any time, someone would be able to enroll. Only restriction really is something you guys in the MTA down the road might be talking about, is like if someone wanted to jump into, say, 3rd grade right now, we have these caps. And so those caps would indeed not allow them unless there was a decision to enroll because of the cap. So the grade sensitivity of the actual grade level in real time affects us right now.
Okay, and those details were included in your update or your announcement before.
Well, you're right. I mean, this is primarily the wait list concept for next year. But any alerts I've sent out, unless it was a grade that we were capped at, we'd be all over encouraging those folks to join.
Okay, that's helpful.
It's very
Go
good.
ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I do want to get in on this point because I've had an experience recently with a local family. This is the time of year where kids who are enrolled in the local private schools have to sign their contracts. It's like right now to commit to next year. And there are parents who are considering Mosier School, but when they call the school and talk to Daphne, what they're hearing is there's a wait list and they can't be guaranteed a spot. And they're uncomfortable. They're in an uncomfortable position of having to decide not to sign the contract with the private school, but not knowing that they'll have a spot at Mosier School. So anything we can do to try to help communicate that class has room right now and your chances look good of having a spot. That kind of language I think would be really helpful because I do fear people don't want to give up their spot at the private school if they're not guaranteed a spot at Mosier. And these are this is a Mosier family that has spoken to me about the conversation that they had with the school. So just making sure that that communication that's coming from the front office indicates that right now we are way below enrollment overall. And that we'll make every effort to accommodate a family that wants to enroll, particularly a Mosier family next year. And, you know, I don't know what information can be shared, but I just wanted to flag that there are families who are feeling like, and maybe this is getting out there, I haven't seen the Facebook posts, but the message coming out of Mosier School is we may not have room for you. You're going to be on a wait list. You're taking a bit of a gamble by sitting on that wait list. And that this is the timing where people have to commit and sign contracts for the Montessori school, for other private schools.
That's
And
an
I think
excellent point. And feel free, Emily or Julia, to if you want to send me, if they're comfortable, information from any of those folks, I would be more than happy to reach out to them. The wait list, my understanding, is based again upon first come, first sign up, and then you weigh that against the cap for, say, like second grade next year. So that's, I think, where the numbers become interesting.
And I think too, Matt, it's because we have open enrollment that starts in March. And so what's happening is the families who are currently at the school will get first priority until we know, well, you know, until Daphne knows which families are definitely coming back. I think she's probably afraid to tell anyone that you're guaranteed a spot, because the families that are currently here will get first choice. But
Yes.
yeah, we could work on the verbiage that she's saying.
But basically what Jennifer just said is, that is sort of the formula. But,
yeah, I'd like to get a better understanding of where we actually stand and what these numbers really mean. Maybe I'll just have to, we're already going to have a meeting tomorrow, Matt, anyway, so maybe I'll just drop that in and see if I can talk to Daphne for a while about, just to try to really understand what this means. And then I'll send an email out to the board that, hey, here's where we really are. And then that might bring up a greater conversation of, you know, where do we want to see our cap sizes? Where do we want to see our classrooms at? Do we have, if we have, I can't remember exactly what grade it was, maybe it was kindergarten, but we have 14 extra people that want to come into kindergarten. That means maybe we need to think about how we want to staff next year and what we want to do to respond to that. But I want to make sure that if we say, hey, here's our ideal enrollment, and we're a little bit below that, but we have people who are waiting to come in, I'd hate to say, well, we're not going to solve it by looking at that. We just need to look at middle school. It's like, well, let's look at this problem holistically and figure out a way that we can address it. And if that means, you know, we'll have to figure that out. But I want to figure out how many people are actually on a list that's over our projected enrollment caps for each class, and then come back and say, okay, here's the issue. Here's what are the solutions to solve this? You know, so we have just a more clear understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think healthy dialogue into the future possibilities is the way the whole system should look at it. Because you take maybe 2 or 3 students gained across 5 grades, you're up to 15, 16. And this isn't any disrespect of the caps or anything. I had nothing to do with the caps. As a matter of fact, that's lower class sizes is one of our positives. So it's sort of a delicate thing. But yeah, we could try to rebrand it better. But, you know, the average cost of a student is about $12,000 to $13,000 each. So with the 30 we were talking about earlier, even if we could gain 15 or 16, it's going to be to everyone's advantage, but it has to be worked through.
Right.
Yes, very good point. So
go ahead, Marie. Sorry, Matt.
No, we need to rebrand it more, a cleaner message. I can tell.
We might want to consider using the term placeholder. And also, my understanding that the school has to serve the children who live in Mosier. So if somebody calls in and says that they live in Mosier, I think that the school, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the school is obligated to serve those children. So that has to be just clarified right away.
Yeah. And that's in the written document, I guess, the Mosier, Wasco, and then from there.
Go ahead, Julia. As long as you're done, Marie. I don't want to cut you off. I'm just trying to keep us rolling.
I think, you know, if folks call it, just making sure that they're getting the right information, and also maybe trying to find a term or a word that it's tricky. You know, saying guarantee is, I can understand maybe not an easy term to use, but one that inspires a little bit of confidence that their child will be able to attend.
Right, but if you have 13 first graders, then to your term, and in theory, they're all from here, then that's 13 placeholders for the next year.
Okay. Go ahead, Julia.
I think it's mostly been covered, but I just wanted to encourage you guys to all have some thinking about, there was certain information that would have put this particular family at ease, like knowing how many people are on the wait list, or where you're the only ones on it, or there is room in this grade right now. And so even if everybody migrated, you know, let's say it was fourth grade, everybody went from third grade to fourth grade, you're first on the wait list and there's room right now. So, I mean, you know, maybe we're not calling it a wait list, but you're first on the list to enroll for next year. And then some sense of timeline of when we'll know in 2 weeks, once we've got the enrollment papers back. Watch out, the baby's playing with the cat. We'll know in 2 weeks, or whatever it is, when that timing is, I'm not sure. But just, you know, you all have a better sense than I do, but I think we could probably do more to encourage families and to also appease their anxieties, that we're a school that can accommodate 225 kids and we have 150. Like, we're going to do what we can to try to make this work with you. We have blended grades, which gives us a little bit more flexibility than we have when we don't have blended grades, things like that.
Right.
Yeah. We're definitely at a time where we need to be nimble with these things and find a way to make it work. You know, it's important for just our long-term success as a school that we make sure we capture as many of these students that want to be here as possible.
Yep.
Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, 2 things. Some of the stuff that was just said were very awesome talking points that we easily could just type up and provide to whoever's answering the phone, to Daphne or anyone who would be talking to prospective, or to all of us as we talk to prospective parents. And then I like the idea of kind of looking at this issue and trying to solve the comprehensive problem. And part of that could easily be, maybe not easily, but could be shifting when our open enrollment is, so that folks who, you know, like if the private schools or any of the alternative schools require in February that you're committing to them, then that could also be when we open our open enrollment period instead of a month later.
Yeah, I mean, it might be done that way, you know, obviously purposely to help them keep their spot. You know, it's all based on pressure and, you know, well, you might not have a spot. So, you know, if we do that, then that may help alleviate those stresses. I think that's a great idea.
Good. I like this talking points. We'll work on that. All strategic, good questions and points.
This also could be something like paired with our last conversation on the, you know, potential for bringing in a contractor to support us. This could be something that would be helpful to stand up a board committee to think on and to talk about.
I will, after my meeting tomorrow, and check in with Daphne in the morning. If there's time for her, I'll send out an email to the board, let you know kind of a clear picture of where we're at.
And Emily's point, Dan,
I'll work on that.
Dan, Emily's point is a great one for a variety of things. Often a board committee will be put together to just focus on one topic, and they're really productive.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments related to those topics we're talking about? Okay, Matt, I think that brings you back to your next
Yes,
item there.
I would like to recommend the hiring of Mrs. Lisa Welsh pending a negotiated contract and board approval.
Any board members have any questions or comments before we make a motion on that?
No, I think maybe just saying in public that this is for the business manager position.
Correct.
Mhm.
That's right. Thanks, Adonia.
I think past practice has been that the ED hires people and then we approve them. I don't remember us approving prior to on a position the ED hires. I think it's just that, hey, I've hired this person and there's board approval of it. But I'm happy to make a motion that we approve it now if that makes it easier after our discussions earlier. So
I think
I'll make
with
a motion.
my
Go
prior
ahead.
interviewing Dan, prior interviewing by phone a couple times with Lisa, talking with Rob, then it goes to you guys in executive, and now we're back in public. That's what I base my recommendation on.
I'll make a motion that the board approves the hiring of Lisa. What's her last name? I don't have it in front of me.
Welsh.
Welsh.
Lisa Welsh.
Lisa Welsh for the business manager position.
Can you spell that?
It's WELSH.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, McKenna. All those in favor? Go ahead, Abelia.
All right, can we make a correction that pending the contract
Yeah,
and the
pending.
terms?
Yeah. Pending negotiated contract and board approval.
Okay, so the motion will be that it almost becomes a support motion then, because we're going to have to come back and approve the contract anyway. So I make a motion that we support you in your process to hire Lisa Welsh pending contract and future board approval of that contract. And second,
I
McKenna.
second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Voice your opposition. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for your work on that and discussions on that. I know it's been there's been pressure there for you, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
That was
Jen, I have you in here for an assistant principal report. It's just going to be a standing thing that I keep in there. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm good tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm just going to leave that in there as we go forward, just as a line item in case there's you have a report that you want to add. I know you're already working on our grant there,
great.
so
Thank you.
that brings us to item 14, which is committee reports and our fundraising committee, which is McKenna.
I actually have really good news to save to the end. I've gotten a match for Made for Mosier. Last year we made $20,000 and it's been matched by the Hunter Pryor Foundation. And so that those
Awesome.
funds have been released and we should have the check this week.
Wow.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Nice
Yay.
job.
Good job. Thank you. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I have a question. Sorry, as I'm trying to write the minutes at the same time. McKenna, what do you think about, and everybody on the board and Matt Henry, everybody who's here, think of the idea of some kind of sustaining membership to the school, a little bit like there's sustaining memberships for radio stations, that sort of thing, for maybe the greater community where they might contribute, $5 a month, $10 a month, 100, I don't know, more. I just wonder if it might be something to bring in extra revenue.
Sure. Yeah. Whenever you're
I think it's a
framing
great
it
idea.
another way. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Easy email blast and we can just revised the website, which I know there's been a lot of talk of working on that anyway, and beefing up that section.
And making it
I like that idea.
making it easy to donate, and then also do the repeating
Yeah,
options.
very good.
Many schools, I thought this was where you were going, Maria, and this is a great idea. Have, for example, a sports hall, let's just call it a hall of fame of honorary past people, and their names are there, and they pay a certain amount. And so it is a great way to basically highlight alumni and build that community.
And you know, one of the pieces that we were going to implement with the playground was the brick, actually
that's
sponsoring
right.
a brick, and so that could easily be associated with somebody who's doing the sustaining membership. Sounds great.
Yeah, I like that.
What is the status of the playground effort?
Well, we had to do a survey to get the plans ready, and so now we're in the design phase. We've gotten, everyone's feedback. We're doing those. The last Tiger's Den meeting, we were able to take a look at the current plan, and it's looking great. And so just some adjustments. It was still in the drawing phase, so. But we should probably have I'll schedule another Tiger's Den meeting, and of course, anybody's welcome to attend those.
McKenna, I was just curious, did you get much staff feedback?
We've gotten, I think 3 staff member feedback, so we could certainly use more. We'd welcome it.
Okay.
But we'll definitely, once we have a closer design, we'll have another meeting for people to advise and give their last feedback before we move forward. And of course, that'll be a fundraiser in itself.
And I know that Dawn received the garden expansion or update grant. Is that are those two efforts aligned at all, or
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So is the garden and the playground, are they still going to be right where they are, or is that
No, we definitely need to move the the garden to the sun. So that's a big item that would be moving, utilizing that beautiful fence gate and moving that into a sunnier spot. Suggestion was to move it into where the current baseball diamond is. There's that big baseball cage that we don't use at all. So having that be more of a garden space.
Any other questions for McKenna on the fundraising front?
Yep, I got another one. Sorry.
Go for it.
I remember seeing some correspondence about Made for Mosier this year. Is that going to move forward, or is that still up in the air?
Great question. And we're going to have to address that at the next Tiger's Den, because there's some great options. But we definitely need more involvement from volunteers to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we maybe if we need to send out another memo to parents or text to parents or whatever it happens to be to get more people involved prior to that meeting, and then we can see what we can get going.
Sounds good.
Jen, do you have a question? Oh, you're muted. Okay, I can't hear you.
It did that to me one time too. I don't know why. It's so frustrating.
Okay, well, I'll let you speak.
You can text me, Jen.
All right. Do you have a question for McKenna? Yes or no?
You can call me.
I don't think.
Or type it.
Okay, she's calling me, so I'll. Yep. You're gonna leave? Okay, I'll tell him. Hopefully he'll get back quick. Okay. She's gonna completely exit out and then try to come back in. She had a question she wanted to ask Dan.
Okay, no problem.
Hopefully she can make that happen.
We'll stand by. Go ahead, Julia.
I was just gonna ask McKenna if we could work some golden retriever puppies into the school plan, you know?
They're all adopted, so you have to
Oh,
ask Stan. He's got one.
Yeah, you know, Hood River has all those cool farm animals. You guys ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
those? They have maybe we can get some chickens and goats, you know, or something.
Oh, definitely got some of those around town.
No, it was enjoyable doing the run too. Like we didn't get to do it this year. The
Turkey trot.
Thanksgiving time turkey trot, yeah, and but that was really fun to work on and be a part of last time, the year before this one. So
We had talked a
I
little
don't know.
about doing like a wildflower spring run, which could be fun.
Mhm.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. All right, Jennifer's connecting here. One of the things we've spoken about in the past, but just bring it up in the dead time here while she's getting logged on. But we do have excess property that we are not using, and so that's a conversation we're going to have in the future about what our plans are with that. As the markets turn around, as the real estate market changes, as interest rates come down, that market will look differently, and we can, look at what we want to do with that, whether it's creating some kind of long-term funding, an endowment, or something else that we can pull from. It's a decision as a board that at some point we should probably address. So
Yeah.
as we go through the upcoming months, think about those things, and we can always set time aside to have a meeting with a real estate agent or with developers or with whoever and talk about what thoughts there are for that piece of property.
Sounds good.
Go ahead, Marie.
Is this property adjacent to the current property, or does it lie somewhere else in Mosier?
It's south of it's basically directly south, and it's just under 2 acres, and it's kind of near, where the portable was up above at that parking lot. Above that, all the way, it goes to ODOT property at the very end there, and it's bordered by where 4th Avenue comes in, where Emily used to live. That's the very edge, and then the other side is at the park on the other side. So it's kind of a rectangle, kind of.
Do you see her there, Dan? Can she?
I see her audio is still not connected yet, though.
Yeah, it seems like there could be a lot of different uses for that property. It's a very neat piece of property. Definitely could put some chickens and goats on it, Julia. If we wanted to do that. That just raises the question of longer term school visioning and planning, which means to me as a facilitator, we need to do some strategic planning and get together and have those really fun and tough conversations about what we want the future of the school to look like. I think we're waiting until the next or the more permanent ED is on board to do that. Is that right?
I think that'd be smart. Yeah.
So you have the 2017 strategic plan on the website still.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some
it was
good
due
stuff
last year.
McKenna,
Yeah.
for the Made for Mosier, how much planning does that usually take? I guess I'm just trying to get information. If how quickly would you need, and how many volunteers would you need to make that?
We would need someone to lead it, because I think a lot of people want to help. But it falls on someone's shoulders, and then
So I'm
And
back
maybe it's
in.
like a
if you-
team.
yeah,
But
I'm
yeah.
back in if you guys
Oh,
can
great.
hear me.
Yeah, we can.
All right. So just with all the transition, everything that's been going on, I just don't think we're going to be able to make it happen this year because we needed someone in the school to kind of be able to organize and get all the artists planned. And then we need a parent, someone to take the lead. And we just don't have enough time. I don't think we can make it work this year.
I think that I understand what you're saying, Jen. And I think that if Evelia, if you have interest in working with McKenna and figuring out if there's a plan to move forward, and the next Tiger's Den, if it brings up any other possibilities, maybe it happens in another form. It's not the same as we did last year, but if there's something that can be salvaged from that, let us know what we can do. Obviously, a lot of us are very busy. If we don't have a lead for it, then it's not something that's going to happen this year. But also then thinking if that does happen, maybe it gives us a chance to think about how to put it on next year. We have some local venues here as well that we could use that have been used for other things that maybe we don't have to go and spend a bunch of money to be outside of our area.
Yeah.
I mean, getting the student art, that's a big part of it. And that hasn't happened this year. Janet always headed that up and had all the artist names and kind of worked on that. And just with the transition this year, we haven't been able to make that happen. We talked about McKenna and I doing like a silent auction, doing a real simple like student art project and then getting all the other vendors and trying to do a silent auction instead of a venue. As an idea, I know one year we did do it at MoCo, and I don't know if that's even a thought. But
Yeah,
the
I mean,
student art is the bigger issue.
Right. And maybe it is a rebranding year for it and it's turns into something maybe else. And I think the student art's great, but maybe it can still live with it's a little bit different this year. But I don't know. It would just take some volunteer involvement for sure.
Yeah. And I know it's kind of a big ask. And this year kind of our focus has been the academics and the reading, trying to help the kids in that area. And the art part takes a good amount of time within the classrooms to get that done as well.
Maybe we think about in the future getting a theme together and getting it sent home and having parents help their kids do it at home. So it doesn't have to take away from classroom time.
Yeah. I mean, what we normally do is we do a big project by grade, and that's what they usually auction off. And we have some of the old ones in the building that are pretty spectacular. And I know each year it got more and more difficult trying to find artists and to get the bigger projects done. But it would be great if we could start it looking into that this summer and get that ball rolling earlier.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the fundraising front? Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, I was just going to say, if we do want to do a wildflower run similar to the turkey trot, I'd be down to help with that.
Okay. I'm interested in that as well.
Wildflowers.
And
yeah.
And maybe we could also do some like a bike ride too, because this is also a big riding area, and do like a run and a ride.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Absolutely.
Might be easier.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of our meeting, unless there's any other questions or comments. Thank you so much for your time today. Long meeting, but we got a lot done, so I appreciate
we did.
all the work you got in there. Thank you.